today on the show, we have the return of Kevin Eastman. And some interviews are too epic to do alone, so I brought with me my best friend and bandmate, Mr. Dakota Michael Kroos.
Yes, I'm here. We got to talk to Kevin Eastman, legendary creator, writer, and artist for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who have arguably been the biggest influence on me and Dave's personalities, lives, and our band Sea Level.
It's ridiculous. For the longest time, we had a button. We did all these buttons for Sea Level that were puns on punk bands, except for one, which was the TMNT logo.
Yes.
Spelling out Sea Level.
Also, every time we played a show on Halloween for the last 10 years of our band, we've always dressed up as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's a band tradition.
It is a band tradition, which we got to do this year. So issue 4 of Last Ronin is out. And this was like, the last time I got to talk with Kevin was mind-blowing for myself. Like, to grow up with these characters and this story and be able to talk to the guy who made it. And then when you learn Kevin Eastman's story and how DIY and punk and like it was all them that did it and how epic that story is, and that itself is super inspiring. So to be able to interact with this guy is personally insane, and to be able to share that with you, Coda.
Such an honor, Dave. I really appreciate you having me to talk to Kevin. Seriously, it's insane, and he's one of the nicest people I have ever got to talk to, and such an amazing guest on the podcast.
For sure. Like, I feel like if I had to list all the top interviews, it'd be Kevin Eastman, Pete Francis. Sorry, everybody else.
Kevin Eastman in the third spot too now.
And Kevin Eastman
the
returns.
return.
Oh man, but yeah. So it was insane. It was insane, and I think we caught him at the end of the press run. He put up with my canter and remembered us from last time, which was absurd. That's insane to be like talking to the dude who made the Ninja Turtles and have him be like, "Oh, I remember your voice. That's rad."
And Dave kind of put him in the headlock towards the end with checking out Sea Level. So we might actually one day hear what Kevin Eastman thinks of Sea Level's music.
Right. He asked us to give him a grade for the Last Ronin, and we took hours upon hours of research and detailed notes, and we're going to present our grade for the Last Ronin right now. Let me get my papers. Cody, you got yours?
Yeah, let me get mine.
And in all categories, story,
10.
art,
10.
characters,
10.
coolness,
10. Badassery, 10.
Well, yeah, you skipped over radness.
10.
And cowabunganess?
Dare I say 10?
Lack of pizza, though. Not approved. Not enough pizza in it. But there is plenty of Bruce Lee in it.
10.
And there's a fair amount of brutalness.
Yes, there is.
A fair amount of brutalness. And my favorite part about issue 4, which we've got a pre-copy of.
Yeah, we do right here in our hands. And the best part
here, let's open to the best page.
It's right here at the
right
end.
Here, at the end.
You'll never believe the ending.
And
we can't tell you about it, so go buy the issue right now.
Right now. Or we'll call the police. And while buying this issue, you should get it at Comics R Go, because the police don't go there.
Yeah, go buy your comics at Comics R Go from Ed and Eric for a good price.
But yeah, in all seriousness, me and Cody are slap happy right now because this is absurd. It's absurd to appreciate someone's work so much and have it move you and be able to interact with that. And the fact that Kevin took more than the time that we were supposed to talk with us, or more than the time he was supposed to have the talk with us, he gave us a little bit more. And we are internally grateful for that and really appreciate it. And we are more than happy to present this interview to you guys now. So, without further ado,
check out our interview with Kevin Eastman.
And if you can like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast on all the podcast platforms. and follow us on the YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. It helps me keep talking to cool artists and sharing their insights with you. So now, without further ado, we have Kevin
Eastman.
Part 2, Return of the Ooze.
Return of the Last Eastman.
Return of the Last Eastman. Press and record. Wow.
Cool, Chris. Sprite.
So I was super honored to get the email to do it again. So I really appreciate this.
Yeah, it's funny. I was like, I recognize your voice, immediately. I'm like, I know this voice. And so, yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Because, we do meet quite a few people. And it's like, and I don't always remember names, but I definitely remember faces, and that's for sure. So, but great to be on with you guys again. Or you too.
Yeah, thank you. That means a lot. That's awesome. Well, to jump into it, the kind of, I guess, narrative we wanted to dive into this time was like some old school questions, some process questions, and then kind of get into Ronin. The first question being, who is Captain Seth Eastman?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. That's a fantastic question, because it is. My uncle Joel was a history teacher at the University of Southern Maine, and for many, many, many years, and he had done a lot of research and on the genealogy of the Eastman family tree, and traced it back to Roger Eastman, who left United Kingdom in 1638, came to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and then sort of immigrated up to further up into New England, which eventually became Maine. And then there's a lot of understanding that basically, as it goes, that a lot of the Eastmans, came from that migration in that time period. And so it went through, so there was this wonderful family tree of all this historical stuff. But one of the things that really caught my eye was Captain Seth Eastman, and he was during the Civil War period. He was in the Union Army, and he was an artist, and he recorded a lot of Civil War scenes and things like that in his artwork. And then after the Civil War, went and spent a lot of time. He's got a couple of big books recording the history of the Dakota Indians. Everything from painting their lifestyle, the things they cooked with and ate with, and their costumes, and just everything. And then, to make a very long story shorter, is his final commission was the government, Congress had, the War Department had commissioned him to create a series of paintings of all the most famous original historical forts in the United States. And so back in those days, you went out and basically, sat there with an easel and painted it from life. And he was near completing, I think it was 17 forts he was doing, and he was painting the one of the last ones, and he collapsed on his easel and passed away. And it's crazy, right? And I always said that that's going to be me. It's like I love my art and my drawing so much. It's like I'm going to be. They'll come into the studio someday, and I'll be slumped over my drawing board, and that'll be it. But that is it couldn't be a happier way to go. So.
The Eastman family tradition.
That's like the most rockin' way. Did you discover him while you were already an artist and already drawing, and or was this kind of later, or sorry, before?
No, it was later. It was in that I was, as my mother would say, I was drawing on the wall since the first time I could hold a crayon, and always. My grandmother painted. My father was a doodler. My mom, had artistic talent and things, and so it was something that was, really resonated and sunk deep with me, that I did it all the time. And then as years went by, and this was even into the early days of the Turtles, and the Turtles having some early success, that when my Uncle Joel finally put together all of the genealogy stuff, that I really dug into that history and said, holy smokes. Yeah. And so it was definitely a discovery that I wasn't aware of, which was a real revelation. So it's like, it sounds funny, but it just made me think it's like one of those Ancestry.com commercials you see, and they go, I didn't know, the story of my family. And it was one of those things when I discovered it, I said, oh, does give you a sense of history and where
yeah,
where we all came from. So,
that's so epic. Like like be all the way down that path as far as you were, and like learn that this is kind of the trend. That's so cool.
yeah.
Now, when you were doing these early, just expressing yourself through art, like in drawing, was there like a particular thing? Like, was it sketching, or like what really resonated? This is how I can convey myself. Was it just that you always did it, or was there a particular like medium aside from like drawing that brought that out?
It was definitely that's a good question. It definitely was my means, or what I really grappled onto or gravitated to, was comic books, and as a 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, it's just such a fantastical thing where you can go to other worlds and other places, and certainly in those days where we lived in the country, and I think we got 3 TV stations on a black and white TV, and only 2 of them came in fairly good. And so imagination was something, that was important, and that, to me, that related to comic books, it was whatever I could think of, past, present, future, any kind of tale, any kind of story. If I could write it and draw it, then I could go there. I could go to that place, from King Arthur to Robin Hood to the Wild Wild West to, moon landings in Star Trek out of space. So that was really the first inspiration. I would draw that all the time. And then as I continued down that path, my father was, influential in that he said, I don't think, you can make a career in comic books, but he said that, he said, in my opinion, that if you are going to draw comic books, one of the things that you're going to need to do is draw everything, because comic book artists just don't draw a character standing in a heroic pose. There's a background, and there's cars, and there's planes, and there's buildings, and there's other people, and they have to look different. If you want to tell a story, you have to be able to draw everything you can see and draw it well to tell a proper story. And that was really kind of a light bulb going off that, he's like, draw a dining room table, draw chairs, draw the car in the driveway, draw trees, just everything. And so that really broadened my horizons to sketching everything and not just, superheroes. And so that really helped in a big way. And that, something that I still do today. It's like, if I'm working on a new story, I will, develop the costume, the characters, the look, the different people. It's like casting a movie, I guess. You have set designers, and you have actors, and you have things that you sort of put together all those pieces before you can actually start shooting your film. You got to know what everybody looks like, and where all the locations are and all that stuff. So that's critically important.
That's fascinating. And it's interesting because, like, you have to, was there a process for, like, a practice for doing that? Like, did you have a practice, like a daily routine of, like, addressing a new thing you haven't learned how to draw or convey? Like, do you have, like, a daily creative schedule to do that and handle whatever you may need in the next story?
As time went on, for sure. In the earlier days, it was like when I was supposed to be doing chores, I was drawing. When I was supposed to be doing homework, I was drawing. When I was supposed to be doing, all kinds of other things, I was usually drawing, and it was just whatever, sketching and drawing and doing this. But then once you get to a more professional level, and I use the term, I guess, loosely, especially in the early days, but once you get to a working system where, like I said, if you are approaching a story and you want to do a story, say a period piece, that you have to do the research, and you have to know what they look like, what the costumes look like, what the sets look like. And so then it was, if you worked on a specific idea, or even if it was just a single painting, you still would do the research and do the sketches. So it was just definitely a more professional approach to putting all the pieces together before you could start the journey, so to speak.
It's interesting that you think of it kind of like getting all the props for a movie, like you said before, because when Coda and I, like when we cracked into the director's cut of Ronin, Coda brought that up. He was like, he's got everything planned out here, because in the back you got like everything Michelangelo wears and where each thing fits, and it's amazing that all that is thought out and planned.
No, it's critically important, and
Right.
as I know that they'll do, maybe probably a larger version down the road, not to try to get you to spend more money, but it's just for the people that are interested in it. Because there's easily, because you see like the layouts that I do in there. I've done the layouts for the entire series. The layouts for the entire series are being done that way, so you have that. But then I think just even since that came out earlier this year, there's usually probably 100 plus more drawings, maybe even more than that, of different sets and locations and things that, as the story develops, again, it's that, as you go on to the next set or the next scene, you have to have all the pieces sorted out and what the characters look like. Because like I said, I'm storyboarding it and doing the layouts, but then I'm working with some really amazingly creative guys, but I give them a direction and I say, basically, this is generally what the set looks like. This is generally what the costumes are. This is what I'm looking for. And there's some stuff I need them to be specific on, but they have the room to, I'm not asking them to trace my drawings. I want to work with them because they're so creative. And, the Escorza brothers and my friend Brent Bishop, I mean, they bring, I wanted to work with them because of what they bring to the table. So it's like sort of, this is what I'm looking for. And get creative, and then it's again, I keep referring to it as sort of a director situation. It's like if they veer off too far to the left or right, and I kind of nudge them back a little bit, but there's room, and they bring their A game, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool way to describe it as a director. I never thought of it like that. Even though they call them director's cuts, I've never considered that. It really is a director's perspective, and from a fan perspective, thank you so much for opening that curtain to us, and we don't mind spending money. We will buy all of them.
Well, it's fun. Well, first, thanks very much. I appreciate the support very much. That's how I have such a great job. But it's interesting. You guys are in a band. There's definitely some similar crossovers that you still, you with the people you want to be with creatively as musicians, and you need to be, it has to be an ebb and flow, and there has to be a give and take, and there has to be sort of someone that sort of, keeps everything in line and keeps you sort of pointed the right way down the highway, but you still want to explore and bring the best, sound and the tune and the opportunity to the finished piece. So there's a lot of, that right brain activity in both worlds.
Totally. It's interesting you bring that up because Dave and I have always kind of thought of the Turtles as our biggest influence as a band in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because they kind of are like a band where it's like it's 4 people and they're teenagers and they always eat pizza and they're always in a van. Like there's so many things that they do that directly mirrors what we do as a band. And
Except for the cool,
yeah, except for
stuff.
the ninja stuff. But I was always curious if if the Turtles were a band, what instruments do you think each one of them would play?
Oh my God, that's funny. That's a great question because man, that's because I was just thinking again. Yeah, there are so many similarities, but I would say if you attribute it to sort of the personalities, it seems like Raphael would be the drummer because he's it brings the ferocity to the backbeat, and that I'd see somebody like Donatello, for some reason, just made me think of a keyboard player.
Oh,
I could
okay.
bring like a certain level of that to it. And then you'd sort of be left with Leonardo, Michelangelo. So I think one would be, you've got to have your lead guitar and rhythm guitar. And for some reason, I would put Michelangelo on lead and Leonardo on bass, because it's sort of like, if you look at them, like if you broke it down like the Beatles, that you'd have that kind of like that kind of feel to them. That there's a drumming is a backbeat, bass. A great bass player is really that timing. Backbone of a particular song and things like that, and that allows the other your lead guitar, so your that would the opportunity to sort of veer off and hit those notes while everybody else keeps everything on track. So that would be my spin on it, I guess.
That's a great answer. Who do you think they would tour with?
Oh, yeah, if you had to have an opener.
Yeah, or who would they open for, or who would open for them?
I guess that's a solid, yeah.
They'd probably tour with. I was just watching this morning, because Courtney had actually got us tickets to the Green Day, Weezer, Fall Out Boy
Nice.
tour that's just starting, delayed. And I'm a lifelong Green Day fan, and of course Weezer has always been great and solid, and one of those things. We like all the bands, and so we were excited that after all the delays, the tour is getting started again. But yeah, they'd be right in that mix, I think. And,
yeah, that'd be a good fit.
My take. So. Yeah, up there with Billy Joe. Go ahead.
It's interesting because there's a lot of punk in the first run of the Turtles, and especially in some of the side stories or short stories. There's that Ghouls Night Out, which was dedicated to Glenn Danzig from the Misfits. Did he ever follow through? Did he ever reach out to you guys?
No, I met Glenn a bunch of times. He's he's such a big comic fan. He's we had a mutual friend, an artist named Simon Bisley, and but no, Glenn's a big comic art collector, and he owned a
he did a book
comic
for a
book publishing company. Yeah, Verotic. It was the company was called Verotic, but he did do a bunch of publishing, some art books and some comic series. I think he did some Rosetta adaptations of like Death Dealer and Jaguar God and some other stuff like that.
Jaguar God is the one that I have.
Yep, but yeah, he's a great comic fan, and it was that came through an old friend of mine from Maine, a guy named Eric Talbot, who was part of the original Rush Studios lineup, and he was a big Misfits and Danzig fan, and brought things like Metallica and some of the other bands that I weren't on my radar. I was more I love rockabilly and rhythm blues, bands like the Blasters or Stray Cats, and just different sort of more soul, R&B and that kind of inspired stuff. James, anything blues, James Cotton, Little Walter, those guys. You did that, so I love it. So.
Because I think the next short story, the 49th Street Stompers, which was your first solo.
Yep.
The opening panel has them. Is that hearing Metallica, and then one of the protagonists has the Cramp shirt on, which is very rockabilly.
Yep. Yep.
How's the harmonica treating you?
Oh man, it's something that I wish I'd put a little bit more. I wish I stuck with it a little bit longer, because it was funny, because it was when I first started just kind of playing along. It was like that. It was I had a couple blues collections, like I said, like Little Walter and James Cotton, and a lot of the absolute genius harp players. But there was the Blues Brothers. Some of their albums just had such an incredible lineup of Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn and
Right.
Tom Bones Malone, and there was a lot. They had really put together an incredible band, and they would have a lot of songs that were easy to follow along with the harp and stuff. So I used to have a commute back and forth to work. It was about an hour each way. I was living in Massachusetts, and that was my ride each way. Was I had my 6 harmonicas, A, C, D, E, and G, and stuff, and I just play along back and forth, and that was probably 2 or 3 years, and then I wasn't driving as much, and it just sort of fell off to the wayside, and then got replaced with drawing and painting and stuff like that. But yeah, I miss it. I pulled it out every once in a while and just remember how much I forgot, and then it gets frustrating. So you're like, crap,
Awesome. It's hard. I can't imagine how much, like, with all the detail that goes into every page, and how much time that takes to be able to balance the two as well as real life and this talking and that the time management aspect of that has to be insane.
It's like anything, for all of us, that we all have very busy lives, and that's one of the things that I bring up when a young person will come up to the table and they want to get into the business, comics or what have you, and they say, well, how do I get in, and how do I do this, and how they'll bring their portfolio, and they say, could you tell me what I could do better, and I basically tell them the same thing, because it's true. It's like, if you want to be a comic book artist or comic book writer or a musician, or you like football, baseball, anything that you have a passion for, time management part is critical, because you have life and work and homework and social life. You have responsibilities and things, and I said sometimes that it you can go days or weeks or anything time period without spending any time on your craft and your passion for what you love. And I said, you almost have to schedule it like you would a meeting or a thing that you just got to say, I don't care, at 7:30 to 8:30 or 8 o'clock, I'm just going to go in the other room and I'm going to sketch and draw and doodle or play a harmonica or do whatever. You have to make that time, and it's not easy. I mean, we've got 3 we've got dogs and cats and a 14-year-old, soon to be 15, and responsibilities. And it is like we have multiple businesses within our business, whether it be the convention business or the things we do on Kevin Eastman Studios, the products, but then it's also the driving forces, the comics and the covers and the writing and the drawing is critical to that whole part of the business, which is important for that whole part of the business. So yeah, time management can be quite brutal, but you have to be dedicated and make the time, because it can easily slip away. It's like, I was just complaining the other day that I need to get my ass back to the gym, because you stop working out and you stop doing that kind of stuff, and suddenly it's a week, and it's 2 weeks, and it's 2 months, and then it's like, and suddenly you put on 5 pounds, and you're like, holy shit, gotta get back to it. So,
Yeah, it's definitely scheduling all that together and trying to make it work is super frustrating, because there's always something else. Like, physical health keeps everything else going, but when you need to put so much time to learn the new landscape and what you're going to draw and how everything that goes into it, or just even write or take time to promote, it takes up, or family time is so much, and to be able to schedule it and fit it right is a really, I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do it, but as far as the creative aspect of when you do schedule it, do you find that time becomes like, was it easy to do that? Was it easy to make the time to focus, like from 7:30 to 8? Does it just, like, the creative brain just click on and stuff start just rolling, or is it hard because it is scheduled for you?
Sometimes it is. It can be hard because it is like it depends on the the size and the breadth and the length and the material you're working on, the story you're working on. For example, like if things like The Last Ronin, it's a 200-page story. We're coming up on wrapping up 160 pages, and from the very beginning, each time you do a page or you add a bit and piece to the story, it's kind of a ripple effect, and it has to be addressed, and you have to remember everything you did and carry it through all 200 pages. And it gets more intense, or as much so that, say, if you're like where we're at now is in the middle of just wrapping up page 160, and so as we're going into the last episode, it is each page you have to remember everything and every nuance you did for all the previous pages as you make adjustments to or add to, because if you make one, if you take a step to the left or right that's offbeat, then that will fuck up everything you've done before. It sort of takes it out of takes it out of balance. So you have to be aware of it. So the point is like that sometimes if you're getting towards if you've spent 8 hours working on this, that, and the other thing in life, and phone calls and family stuff and things, and then you have to sit down at 7 o'clock at night and work on a couple more pages to pull all those connectors again together to move it another page or two or three down the line. Sometimes it's just impossible. Like your brain is just absolutely scrambled eggs. As tough. But then what I do usually in that kind of scenario is I save sometimes the later work for just working on, say, a cover or an illustration or something, either related to or as part of some of the other jobs that I take on, because once that's sort of established, it's a standalone piece and you don't have to think so much, and you can have the TV on the background or listen to a podcast or have music going, and you just sort of do the artistic stuff, and you don't have to really think about it that much. So but that's good. So
that makes sense.
So yeah. So
kind of on the topic of Ronin.
Well,
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
No, just say go ahead. Let's get down to the last couple of questions.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm getting a high sign of it's time to get back to my other get back to the family and that stuff. But it's enjoying the conversation personally anyway. So that's great.
Last time we talked about Bruce Lee and the martial arts philosophies, and in the second issue you kind of dive into Mikey's backstory, and it's very reminiscent of the Book of Five Rings. Was that the influence on that?
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely and it's something that as I read many years ago, Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, which is sort of his overlying philosophy of martial artists and what makes a better martial artist, and it actually put him in conflict with a lot of different martial arts purists in that. And actually, if you look back, I did an issue, Turtles issue 21 was kind of a fill-in issue, and it's one where I had Splinter dress up in disguise as a kind of this mysterious assassin-like character, and he sort of went after each of the Turtles, and he said, the lesson was, you only use a side, you only use a bow staff, you only use a sword, or you only use a nunchuck, and so that limits your ability to combat other people that can use all of those weapons. Right. And use them better, or different kinds of weapons. And so that's what his concept was, is learn all martial arts, master all martial arts, and that will make you, quote unquote, the ultimate martial artist, which is what a lot of MMA guys do now, especially the really good ones. So that to me was important to the Turtles philosophy, and it was also something that, like I said, Bruce Lee getting into conflict with some of the purists that if you study Wushu, you only study Wushu. If you study karate, you only study karate or jujitsu or and things that just you do one thing, and that to me is if you really think about it, it does makes a lot of sense to study everything and be better at everything, and then you can, if you're fighting a guy that if you know 6 different forms of martial arts and you're fighting a person that only knows, say, judo, then potentially you would have a lot more options in your arsenal to win.
Speaking of Bruce Lee, I was curious. You had a Bruce Lee-esque story that you did with Conan the Barbarian. I believe that was your first interior Marvel work.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that was. I really had. It was. It's funny. That story was a mixed blessing, and I mean that by huge lifelong Conan fan. But it literally came probably at the worst possible time. The time that I had so many other projects, especially last Ronin, that were moving, so that I had a very, very small window to work on it. Probably would have spent a year drawing it. And then the story I originally pitched was 5 pages, and we ended up doing 10. But it was very much Bruce Lee inspired. A bit of redemption and a bit of revenge, and taking care of the those who can't look out for themselves. So, but yeah, that was the singular interior Marvel work that I've ever done, and who knows if I'll ever do another one. There was an opportunity that was presented, and I jumped on it and had a lot of fun. But it was we'll see.
That's awesome. If you had another opportunity to do maybe like a mini series, is there a particular character you'd like? I'd love to see you write someone like Shang-Chi.
Yeah, no, that would be I love that stuff, and I guess if I had to pick. I guess I gravitate to one of my biggest influences, inspirations. Long before even Frank Miller came on board. Daredevil was my favorite, one of my all-time favorite characters, and and I always gravitated towards the Daredevils and the Captain Americas and Batmans and things that were heroes that were a bit more grounded, if you will. They sort of relied on physical strength and training and their brains and that kind of skill to accomplish the missions and the things they wanted to. So top of the list for me would I'd go for like Daredevil, and of course it would be being selfish, I'd love to do a Turtles Daredevil crossover.
Oh my gosh,
super sick.
Awesome.
Kevin, thank you
fantastic.
So much for I know you've been doing press all day, and I really, really appreciate that the Jasmine sent the thing to be in the press thing again. So and the fact that you remembered my voice and my canter, appreciate that you didn't hang up right away.
No, it was good. I enjoyed talking to you guys. You guys asked great questions, and it's and honestly, I talk a lot, and I always enjoy it. So it was a pleasure chatting with you. And I would say, why don't you, I think we should be, if everything goes as planned, the idea is that we'll wrap up issue 5 and have it out before Christmas. So maybe we'll circle back the end of the year or the very first of next year. And
that'd be awesome.
You can do a little report card. Let me know how we did.
For sure. If you'd put up with talking with us again, we'll call you. Well, thank you so much.
No problem. It'd be my pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks.
Yep,
Sounds
have
good.
a good night.
Later.
Thank you as well. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cowabunga.